Well, Todd, I finally got your Ken, I finally got your friend Todd on the line with us. Are you there with us, Todd?
Yes, I am. I'm listening through the earpiece, and I'm listening on the internet as well. I'm trying to figure out which one I should shut off.
Well, probably shut off the internet because there's about a 30-second delay there.
There you go. How are we all doing, gentlemen?
Good. Well, we were having trouble getting everybody on the line here, but I think we're good now. So, Ken, why don't you introduce your friend Todd Confessor here?
Todd Confessor, a brother of mine from many years, a guy I've put a lot of miles on with, trusted brother, awesome production manager, stage manager, whatever you need, he can certainly do it. So, and I'm sure he's got better stories than mine because he's younger and better looking, so we should listen to him.
I think Kenny's only saying that because I've never been married, so I don't really ever have to really worry about what I'm saying.
Oh, wait, he's smarter than me too, by the way.
Oh, Kenny, I forgot to tell you, it's no longer a check being in the mail. The direct deposit already went through your account.
Oh, cool.
Well, Todd, give us a little bit of your resume so that we know where to start from. Who have you worked with, and what have you done?
I sent you guys my resume, actually, just in case it would help the questions, going through, making things any easier. But I started out very, very similar to Mr. Kenny Barr there. We grew up together, slugging it out in the clubs in Long Island. It was a very interesting club scene, very active club scene, and something I'm sure he has stated. I'm very proud to belong to this family, this brotherhood, so to speak. If you were to count up at this point, there's probably upwards of 40 to 50 people that are actively in the music business today, in the entertainment business, whether it be on the stage or behind the stage, actively earning a living, paying, supporting their families. And we all grew up in probably a same 30-mile radius, playing in the same nightclub, spending 4 to 5 nights a week together. Sometimes at the end of the night, we'd split X amount of dollars, and it would be enough for everybody to put a couple dollars of gas in their tank and get a salami sandwich. At the end of the night, we'd sit in the parking lot of 7-Eleven and just be eating crap food from 7-Eleven. But 10, 20 years later, here's everybody on the road. I've done this with Kenny. That's where it came from. From there, I went to work for a couple of thrash metal bands, Exodus and Celtic Frost, and turned the 80s into a bunch of, more of the pop metal stuff, Danger and Trickster and Valentine and a number of things. And always continued to go back and forth between, I would go from Prong to Carly Simon, from Mariah Carey to Dream Theater. I did actually Stone Temple Pilots with Ken. There's a couple great stories there. I went from Prince to Ted Nugent, from, Judas Priest to Garbage to Mudvayne to Trans-Siberian Orchestra to In Excess to Linkin Park to Poison, et cetera, et cetera. The way someone once said to me, Enrique Iglesias to Marilyn Manson. That's pretty much,
wow.
Pretty much the gamut of it. In the last few years, I've been doing Toto, and for the last 5, almost 6 years running, I've been tour managing Night Ranger. It's an ongoing project, but that's pretty much soup to nuts what I've reading you my resume, so to speak.
Sure. Well, and that the interesting part of that is that I'm going to assume you don't like all the music that you were hearing. How difficult is it when you're out there with a band that maybe you're not into to do the gig day in and day out without getting bored or frustrated or anything like that?
Well, the simple part of that is I've got a very easy analogy of that. I was a drummer. I know Kenny was just speaking about, the importance or lack of importance as it is to you don't need to be a player. I was a drummer, and one of the first jobs I had was as a drum tech. And one of the first larger gigs I had was working for a left-handed drummer. And it was one of the first and earliest on things that really taught me that what I was doing, my personal wants, beliefs, desires, feelings, they have nothing to do with the job. You're paid to do a specific job, and honestly, if you can have fun with it, we all have had fun. You can have Kenny and I on the radio for 10 hours. We can talk about all the fun we've had doing stuff, but in the end, it is a job, much like anybody else. It's not, we're not curing cancer. We're not a teacher or a doctor. We're not, forging the minds of the future or curing cancer, but people treat it just as importantly and even more intensely in our line of work. And sure, there's been plenty of people, they'll remain nameless, that I've worked for that couldn't stand the music, or there were people I worked for that I couldn't personally stomach either. But as I'm sure Kenny will attest, at the end of the day, it's a job, and blessed to do it. I've been really, really lucky that I've been involved with a bunch of great people, and still to this day involved with a bunch of great people. And a lot of these relationships, I'm probably repeating a lot of things that Kenny has already mentioned, but a lot of these relationships I still have, decades later. It's fantastic.
Well, Todd, you guys obviously got to make a living going out there, lumping that equipment and, keeping up with schedules and whatnot. And you mentioned, you get paid to do a job, and you go from, you mentioned playing with or working for some of the bigger people, say like a Mariah Carey, who is a big star, as opposed to maybe a theater level band such as Night Ranger, which I think Chris just saw Night Ranger a few weeks ago.
I did.
How different does the pay scale go for, the bigger acts to the smaller acts? And how do you decide, I'll take this tour on, even though it's not as much money as, say, a bigger tour such as an arena act?
Well, there are a number of variables that come into the equation all the time. Anytime you're faced with any job offer in a situation such as this, regardless of the stature of the band, you have to look at where you are at personally at the moment. You have to look at where the gig is going to put you in 3 months, where it's going to put you in 6 months, or a longer period of time, or even a shorter period of time. You have to weigh that against other things that you've got on the table, or other items that you have, maybe other irons you have in the fire. A lot of times your passions do, as much as I speak of them not mattering, a lot of times your passions come into play, in a situation like this, making a choice. You could have gotten an opportunity. I have a dear friend that was doing a heavy metal tour with me, and he was working for the artist that he absolutely grew up idolizing and loving. He's a player, but he was a tech on the tour. So he was totally okay with teching for this one band because it was this artist. I had gotten a phone call from another friend, and I was able to offer him a massive arena stadium tour gig, 2.5 to 3 years, double the money he's ever had. And he took a day or 2, 3 days, and he just said to me, I just don't want to do it. And he was a young guy. This was only 2 years ago, and he could have literally written his ticket in the business. He could have purchased a house. He could have, given that 2-3 years, he would have set himself up completely. But it just wasn't what he wanted to do. Sometimes you get an offer of a job, and it's the last thing you want to do. Sometimes you're waiting for the phone to ring, and you're forced to take whatever comes down the pike. A lot of times, I think it comes down to the person weighing out, whether it be, this red job or that blue job. You have to figure out in that moment what's better for you.
Well, how does Night Ranger compare to, any other gig that you've had? You said that you've been with them for 5 years. Obviously they're doing something right where you're concerned. As far as the perks for working with a Night Ranger as opposed to a large arena act, what do you, when you say you got to weigh the pros and the cons, what are the pros with a Night Ranger?
Well, honestly, the situation with Night Ranger is a very unique one in that this is a band that if you just saw one of your guys just saw them live, then I don't need to boast, but simply the fact of the matter is this is a band that has an incredible catalog of music. This is a band that kept themselves in great health, that when you go see them, it's 3 of the 5 original members It is the three people who wrote everything. It is the voices. It is everything that you would want to go see in a band from that era. You're not going to see a watered-down version or two guys that used to be in that. You're going to go see this band, you know, give them an hour, you'll hear nothing. It's a jukebox. Give them 2 hours, it's nothing but a party. And in all honesty, this is a band that when other people go out, they put a record out, they'll go out on a tour from point A to point Z. They'll do a tour from this amount of time. Night Ranger, in the time I've been there, I've taken a few breaks when they've gone in to make a record, or certain times either tired or quiet. I've gone in, I've went and done Manson, I've went and done Enrique Iglesias, Toto, a few different things during my time with them. But here is a band. We had a few shows in January. We had a show at the top of this month. We'll do the UK and a few shows in March. In April, we'll do a cruise, some Puerto Rico stuff, some corporate events. Come May, June, July, August, September, into October, that band will work, if not the entire time. That band will work 3 to 5 days a week, all of those months. But more importantly, the other months of the year, there's still some stuff going on. It's not a band that begins and ends. You know, number one, it provides me with time at home. Now, I'm single. I have no wife, no ex-wife, no girlfriend, no children. So this would be a perfect position for somebody who was married, because it's almost like being a traveling salesman. I mean, as the tour manager of that band, I leave on a Wednesday or Thursday. I'm home on a Sunday or a Monday. I get a few days at home and a few days away. They take financially, I'm in a very good position with them. I'm blessed to be in this great situation with a great band that, again, does great numbers when they go out. I mean, I'm sure, like I said, I'm not sure which one of your guys just saw them. I'll go out on a limb and saying I know for a fact that I can't remember a bad show with this band in 5 years.
Sure.
And in all honesty, it provides me, and Kenny will attest, when you go on the road, that's your life. Especially, myself in the last decade or so of my career, I've been very blessed to where I'm doing just tour or production management at this point. So when you're in that position, unlike other parts of the job where when you go to work when the truck opens, when the truck closes, you're done. I don't have days off. I have non-show days where I'm advancing or prepping or putting something to bed or advancing the next thing. By doing Night Ranger allows me to have a life and be doing what I love to do.
Sure.
And that is one of the greatest things I can say about that. People often say, oh, if you like what you do for a living, you'll never work a day in your life. My answer to that is, what if you love what you do for a living?
Right. Sure. And it was me that went to the Night Ranger show, and I have to add, and it was a great show. No argument about you. I was in I'm in
Where
Cleveland,
was it?
So I saw the Cleveland show at the casino.
Oh, okay. There you go.
And the one thing that I'm always curious about with the road crew especially is certainly for the most part of a show, no matter who the band is, you kind of know what's coming, as the road crew. They're going to play this song and that song and this song and that song, and they're going to play this from that.
Sure.
So you sort of have a clue when the equipment changes are going to come, and, what songs and where, and, what you need to have tuned and ready and in hand and all that kind of stuff. But I'll point specifically.
I write the set list, so I know.
Well, yeah, but I'll point specifically to that Night Ranger show that they just did here in Northfield or in Cleveland. They went completely off script. They were
Absolutely.
Playing, how difficult is that for the road crew when the band starts? I mean, they were playing "The Boys of Summer" by Don Henley in the middle of the show, and clearly they had never even played it. So it was, it was really. I would imagine something like that ends up becoming difficult for the road crew. Is that true or not true? Or
well, number one, something like that keeps you on your toes, and it's something along those lines. It's more the actual band technicians. It's more the guitar tech, the drum tech, and or whoever the people on stage or monitor engineer. I mean, I myself at that point, a lot of times during the show, I'm printing boarding passes for tomorrow's flight or settling the show, being paid and everything.
Sure.
And I have the set list. It's up on the wall in my office in front of me, or it's in my pocket. And all of a sudden I'm hearing things, and I will tell a promoter, a lot of times I'll make a mention in the evening of like, they'll say, well, how long is the show? We'd like a 75 to 90-minute show, but if they play longer, that's great. And I tell them, if you book a 75-minute show with that band, you're going to get 83 to 86 minutes, but if they're having a good time, it'll come. And then all of a sudden, Kerry Kelly's our new guitar player. He played with Alice Cooper for years, so all of a sudden they're doing Schools Out. Brad Gillis played with Ozzy. Now they're doing Crazy Train. In the middle of Don't Tell Me You Love Me, there's Deep Purple and the Eagles get thrown in there. I mean, here's a bunch of people that, like I stated before, they love what they do for a living. So if they're having fun and they're doing it, and you know what? When somebody is truly enjoying what they're doing and truly loves what they're doing, you can see it, and it's contagious. But it'll throw people on the stage for a loop to a certain extent. I mean, as far as tunings go, if, all of a sudden somebody wants to play a song that's in a, different tuning than the guitar that they have, obviously now here's somebody wants something that at this point of the night, they never would want that. So as a tech, you could be doing something else or prepping something else. And, I want the red one. Well, I'm working on the green one. The red one's not ready. Well, I want to do this right now. And that's where, as Kenny was saying earlier, it's their word. Their word is law. It's what they, in the heat of the moment, as I tell many of the artists I work for, I have very few rules. In the heat of the moment, in the middle of that 1 hour, 2 hours, there's a very short list of things they can't do. Outside of that, in that time, they can say anything, they can do anything. That's theirs.
Sure. Now let's talk a little bit about the tour management piece, and I'll point specifically to Manson. And I don't know if you were tour managing him or stage managing.
I was the production manager on that tour.
Okay, well then this will fit perfectly. How difficult is it? No question. I've seen Manson a dozen times, and I mean,
I'm going to tread lightly here.
he puts on a crazy show, and I mean, I know a lot of it is in the same vein as like Alice Cooper, where there are certain cues that everything hits and things happen.
Oh, absolutely.
But with an artist like a Manson, where the crowd is that much more crazy and ends up, trying to get on stage and, things get a little bit crazier than what is the theatrical plan, how difficult is it to keep what is supposed to happening with all the, and even with Manson himself, sometimes he's laying down on the stage, sometimes he's jumping.
I was going to say to you, we can have, I always say it's organized chaos, and as I would say in security meetings or when I would be speaking with the crew, we will do our part to do exactly what we need to do at every point of the show. And you're right. In a show like that, there are a lot of what we would call gags. It's very theater-based. There are a lot of what's coming in, coming out, moving. When the lights go down for that 8 seconds, someone's going to go from here to there to do that. That's going to come out from under a curtain. That's going to come up from under the floor. At one point, we had 9 trucks going on that Manson run, and he pulled out on towards the end of the last run. We did a co-headline with Rob Zombie, and then we did a co-headline with Alice Cooper. And Alice, the absolute gentleman that Alice is, an absolute gracious, wonderful man, and I've been blessed for many years, starting with working with Kenny, of meeting him and knowing him throughout the years. Manson is uncontrolled chaos, so to speak, but given the fact that we were touring with Alice at one point, there was such a respect and a reverence for Alice that Manson decided to pull out every one of his old gags. So I'm going to do this, we're going to do that. And, he called upon me to break this out, do this and get this and do that. And it was things he hadn't done in years. And the unknown part of this is we can plan all this and go into pre-production. We can run the show, and I'll have the show run down the clock. It's like a Broadway performance or like anything else. Military precision, and everybody knows where they're going to be, At any given point in time, we know when that confetti cannon is going to go off and that's going to explode and that's going to do that. But what you cannot control, as you stated, the audience. So now there are numerous things with the audience being involved with bringing the public into the equation. And more importantly, in a gig such as that, Manson himself,
right,
is such a variable, is such a, there's no book for that. You basically, when you unleash that animal, I have to say that it would be 90 minutes of everyone at battle stations for 90 minutes. And there was, that 90 minutes to 2 hours of the day, every single person was on radio, on headset, eyes front. It was because what he brings to the table. And I don't mean this in a negative way, but just in such a, there is no script. He is, it's for real. Like a lot of people say, he puts the makeup on and does it. Let me tell you something. That man, it's for real. That's not a gag. That's not an act. You want to talk about artist, whether you love him or hate him. And when you have an artist such as that, that's what it's going to be. There's no people who are like, he's okay. You either love that guy or you hate him. But an artist of that stature, there is such an untapped, uncontrollable level with that. It's really hard. It's they bring the crazy, so to speak.
Well, on a personal level, how is he to work for? I mean, outside of, obviously Showtime, I mean, as far as, touring with or interacting just on a personal level, I mean, what kind of a guy is he?
I was very lucky that right from the jump, from the moment I met him, I've had some experience with, let's see, not to say difficult, but I've had a lot of experience with extreme artists of that caliber. And going into it, I knew, I had heard all the stories. Everybody tells all the stories. Oh, this is this, and this one's like that, and one's like that. And I said, this is someone that a lot of people are afraid of. I mean, honestly, in plain English, a lot of people are afraid of the man. And, something like that, and something in a situation such as that, it's very much like school playground. I don't want to say prison. I mean, I don't have experience with that, but what I mean, it's very much like on the school playground. The bullies were there, and basically, you either stood your ground, you didn't have to beat anybody up, but you certainly, there was all sorts of different factions on the, when you went to school and on the playground. And when I first met the man, he walked in the room, and I walked right up to him and started introducing myself, and he was very taken back by the fact that I went right to him and started introducing myself. As a matter of fact, while we were still shaking hands, someone come running over, and they're like, "Oh, Manson, listen, this is Todd Confessor, and he's up." And Manson looks down, and I hadn't let go of his hand. He looks at the person, he goes, "Yeah, he's doing a pretty good job of introducing himself right now." And he looks down, and he looks at me, and I still have his hand in my hand, and he says, "You let go of my hand." I said, "I wasn't done talking to you." And he said, "Oh, this is the new boss." And I said, "Well, I was taught, I was brought up by a good man, and I wasn't done introducing myself. I'm going to be your production manager. I'll be doing this, so on and so forth." And he said, "Okay." When he looked around the room, and interestingly enough, we were in probably a 100-foot by 50-foot square room, and the lights were off. He likes it dark, and it was pitch black in there. We're all wearing black, and I was one of 3 new people. There was a guy probably 60 feet away, a guy 50 feet away, and myself. And he turned, and when he was walking in, before I even introduced myself, I heard him say to his assistant, "That guy's new, that guy's new, and that guy's new." Now, we're in a pitch black room. Everyone is in head-to-toe black. One of the guys that he pointed at was so cold that he had a hoodie on. With his hoodie up, he looked like, the character from South Park, Who Killed Kenny there. And one of the things I said to him after, he said, "Okay, "Oh, you're the new boss?" He goes, "Well, introduce me to those 2 new motherfuckers." And I went, "Okay." And it struck me that this man was in a black room, dark room, for all of 15, 20 seconds, and he picked the three strangers out at 50, 60 feet away. Inside of 30 seconds, he was in a room, and he knew there was three people he did not know in that room. Very interesting talent.
Sure, absolutely. Well, Todd, have you read Ken's book?
Well, it's difficult not to read a book where where you're mentioned in it so much. So yes, by all means, I have of course read Ken's book, and I have loved Ken's book, and I always wish that he would do more because he could embellish so much more on it. I think he could do books based on different facets, different tours. I mean, there could be. Him and I have spoken about doing different things. My aspirations are probably doing something along the same lines. I even had a friend of mine basically took my resume, a dear friend of mine, the guy's known me for a long time, took my resume and started writing notes of all the stories he's heard from me from each one of those tours. And he gave me my resume back and he said, "Here's your book." And I said, "What?" He goes, look next to the band's name. I wrote 2 or 3 things about a couple different stories I heard from you from each one of those tours. He goes, "Write it all down. There's your book." Now, Kenny's the guy who finally did it. We all talked about doing it, like I originally said. It was a very close-knit group of people that I'm very blessed to call a lot of them my brothers. And, luckily, a lot of these people are still very successful in this line of work. But Kenny's the one who did it. And to be honest with you, I would love to do the same thing, but his book is, it gave me inspiration because I think he touches on so many great things from obviously his beginnings, the story in his beginnings, because as I stated, I'll say for the third time, that's a whole book in itself. I mean, you could do it. There could be a 13-episode miniseries, that whole thing, our whole club days growing up thing, but, there's so many different flavors, I think is what I'm trying to say. There's so many different aspects to Kenny's book that I think it's great, and I think he should do 10 more.
Sure, absolutely. All right, Todd. Well, we appreciate you taking a few minutes to talk to us here on the Classic Metal Show. Is there anything else you want to tell the fans, before we cut out of this?
Well, you know what? This was great. Kenny and I spoke briefly earlier tonight, and, I think it would be great. I'd love to do this again. I think we could, do some focusing on, if you guys wanted to do a couple themed shows based on a few different things. But my door is always open to this. I'm sorry I was a little bit delayed on the front end here, but I would absolutely love to do this again. And any faction or anything along these lines of doing this stuff with you guys, I'm open to it, and I absolutely appreciate it. I really do.
All right, Todd. Well, you're welcome to come back, and we'll definitely arrange something down the road here because we like these road stories and all these tales and whatnot. So, we'll definitely have you back.
Sure, by all means. I appreciate it, gentlemen. Thank you.
All right,
Thank
Todd.
you, Kenny Barr.
All right, Todd. Well, since you're since you're so close to the Night Ranger camp there, I thought I'd close out with something very American. You can still rock in America. That seems to always be a fan favorite.
I'm going to not close up my computer because that's to be Pavlov's dog-esque. I know every night by the time they're playing that song, I have to be packed up. So luckily I'm in my own home and I don't have to start putting my jacket on or anything. So thankfully it'll be probably the first time I've heard this song in a long time where I'm not closing up everything I own while I'm hearing it.
Excellent. All right, Todd. Well, we'll have you back again. Thanks again for being a part of the show. So here it is. This is Night Ranger with You Can Still Rock in America exclusively here
on your Classic Metal Show.
Thank you, guys.